Hello, and thank you, Sassy, for the invitation to be part of this session. Hope you're all having a good and productive time in Colombia. Now, my talk is going to focus on the issue of power and colonialism in global health, and I want to cover three things. First, I'll define and describe colonialism and highlight it as a contemporary phenomenon. I'll then relate colonialism to global health. And finally, I'll make two brief remarks about research and the decolonization of global health. I find it useful to define colonialism in two parts. First, you have an unequal relationship between groups of people with a pattern of domination and superiority on one hand, and subjugation and inferiority on the other. The second part consists of acts of misappropriation, exploitation, and extraction. Now, using this definition, colonialism is something that may occur between countries or within countries, and it may involve both state and non-state actors. It's also important to note that while colonialism may be accompanied by overt physical violence or coercion, it may be expressed without direct physical violence through social, economic, and ideological structures and institutions that are oppressive and unjust, what is sometimes referred to as structural violence. This, of course, was recognized by Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president, who coined the term neocolonialism to warn of the structures that would allow the continued exploitation of Africa post-independence. And sadly, he was correct. This slide, for example, refers to a report published in 2017 that described and quantified various aspects of neocolonialism in Africa. However, while contemporary colonialism still has a geographic pattern based on nation states and regions, neoliberal globalization and the rise in power of transnational and supranational actors has accentuated transnational and supranational forms of colonialism and created new globalized forms of economic exploitation and wealth accumulation. These eye-watering statistics produced by Oxfam speak not just to the potency of contemporary economic colonialism, but also to the presence of a global elite with immense political and economic power that's deployed to preserve and further expand their privilege, wealth, and power. Among the key actors of contemporary colonialism are private equity firms and oligopolistic transnational corporations operating across multiple economic sectors and across entire supply chains with inadequate democratic and regulatory constraints. Importantly, contemporary neoliberal colonialism is characterized by growing numbers of poor and economically precarious people in high-income countries and by billionaires and multimillionaires from low and middle-income countries. It's vital that we also think of colonialism as an ecological and temporal phenomenon. These are images of the environmental outcomes of the colonization of the Amazon and the Niger Delta, and represent a colonial mindset that sees the planet as a resource to be plundered. The destruction of the planet and the overconsumption of the Earth's finite resources can also be viewed as a form of intergenerational colonialism, whereby recent and current generations are effectively stealing from our children as well as from future generations. The final introductory comment about colonialism I want to make is about the importance of ideas, beliefs, and narratives in legitimizing and sustaining colonialism. This includes racist ideas and beliefs that are used to dehumanize, infantilize, or degrade others, or used to frame others as threats that either need to be controlled or who can be denied their basic human rights. It also includes ideas, beliefs, and narratives about Western cultural superiority, as well as economic ideas, beliefs, and narratives that are used to accommodate unacceptable inequality and poverty. These include, for example, the claims that billionaires are wealth creators rather than wealth takers, or that today's intellectual property rights regime is efficient and helps to drive scientific innovation. The incorporation of lies about the causes of global warming into mainstream discourse is another example of the power of ideas to sustain colonialism. And finally, if the systemic oppression and economic exploitation of women is framed as a form of gendered colonialism, one could also view sexist ideas and gendered prejudices as elements of coloniality too. So I hope that those are some useful provocations about the concept of colonialism. But I want now to discuss how it might relate to global health. And specifically, I want to introduce our program of work on decolonizing global health, which is organized around a framework of 3 dimensions: colonialism within global health, the colonization of global health, and colonialism through global health. The first dimension speaks to power asymmetries and colonial relationships within the global health community. This includes concerns about health actors from the global north dominating and exploiting research and development assistance funded projects in the global south, as well as the way in which the globalized higher education sector is dominated by universities from the global north. Many of the recent discussions about decolonizing global health have focused on this dimension, and I think we'll hear more about this from the other speakers today. The second dimension concerns the colonization of the global health system itself. It's concerned with how powerful actors dominate and influence global health narratives, finance policies, programs, and practices in ways that reproduce inequality and reward power and privilege. This dimension has been clearly visible in the global response to COVID. It's also visible historically in how the anti-colonial ideals and progressive aspirations of the 1978 Alma Ata Declaration on Health were challenged and undermined by powerful actors in the global north and replaced with the more narrow and limited prescriptions of selective primary health care. And of course, it's also visible in the power and influence wielded across the entire global health complex by the Gates Foundation with its particular technological and philanthrocapitalistic approach to health improvement. There has also been a growing colonization of global health policy-making spaces by corporate actors with conflicts of interest, partly through the explosion of public-private partnerships over the past 2 decades, but also through the creation of new global health governance forums, such as the World Health Summit, which in turn brings us to the third dimension. This dimension refers to the way financial and corporate stakeholders profit from and extract wealth from health systems at the expense of public health and universal health security. This dimension is exemplified by the cohort of new pharmaceutical billionaires that emerged off the back of COVID. And there are many other examples of excessive profiteering through health systems by the corporate and financial emperors of today's globalized economic system. Another aspect of this dimension is the way the global health system acts as an alibi for the corporate and other actors driving and benefiting from excessive wealth accumulation and unethical tax avoidance. It does this by inviting them into global health public-private partnerships and into new global health governance forums such as the World Health Summit. You could argue that it also does this by focusing on and celebrating the technocratic and technological achievements of global health programs while neglecting, in relative terms, the underlying political and economic structural determinants of ill health. This would equate parts of today's global health industry with the 19th and 20th century European missionaries who provided healthcare to the natives in the colonies while turning a blind eye to colonial oppression and exploitation. So what we're trying to do with these 3 dimensions is encourage discussions about decolonizing global health that include the issues of geographic, racial, and ethnic inequalities within the global health system, whilst also discussing the global health system's relationship and interface with the structural violence of the wider neo-colonial global political economy. I want to end now with 2 points about research. First, if we're serious about decolonizing global health and confronting power imbalances, we need to call for more funding of political economy research and be unafraid to combine research and science with social and political advocacy. Second, public health academics need to develop the expertise and confidence to speak about issues such as capitalism, financialization, corporate governance, antitrust law, tax reform, and the secrecy regimes of banks. These issues are not only fundamental to an understanding of contemporary colonialism, but are critical to addressing the commercial determinants of disease and the lack of access for millions of people to essential healthcare. I know that's a lot of ground covered in a pretty superficial way, but I hope it provides some useful food for thought and discussion, and I want to just end by saying thank you very much.